Welcome to the Coaches Show. I'm Darrin Joins, Williamson County Schools Athletic Director. We're talking about tonight's WCTV Game of the Week football matchup. We've got our head coaches here from the visiting team, Brentwood High School, Coach Clint Finch. Coach, welcome.
Thank you for having us.
And the home team tonight, Coach Brian Coleman from Summit High School. Coach, appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So tonight's matchup is the first region game
Yes,
for both teams. It's also homecoming. Now, Coach Finch, you can't put it on the bulletin board. Coach Coleman did not decide to do homecoming.
That is a thing. That is a thing these days. The head coaches have no say in when homecoming is.
Yeah, they tell me when homecoming is too.
Exactly.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. So, Coach Coleman with homecoming as the home team adds a little different distraction. How do you handle that during the week?
During the week, I don't think it's a big deal. Just tell them, to get to bed at a normal time. I don't know that they're really out there building the floats. A lot. And now in Williamson County, a lot doesn't happen during the week. On our school, it's mostly Friday. Friday is the big day. Friday is the busy day where you're sitting in a parade all day. Sometimes it's going to be really, really hot. I don't know that it will be the case this Friday, but just got a lot of activities going on that Friday. So, just getting them to relax on Friday or, trying to get them some extra time after all that stuff is the biggest thing for us.
And as the visiting team, sometimes people think it's just a distraction for home, but it can be for the visiting team too, depending on when the festivities are taking place.
Right, and it's a little thing. Like, we're creatures of habit, and we kind of know what time we get on the field and off the field and pregame, and we know we have to be off a little earlier this week. So hopefully it's nothing that's going to throw us off our game, but it makes it different for everybody.
Sure does. Hey, let's talk about this. You've played 4 games so far. Obviously, every game counts. If you have tiebreakers, the total record come into play. But really, Coach Finch, tonight, it's the real start.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, we have gold cards on our lockers. And every day our kids go put their helmet up, they have to see that gold card. And they put things like make the playoffs and win a region championship, make a playoff run. And we've taught this week, that's great, but you have to understand you have to win the region games to accomplish that. So, coach speak, I know. They're 0-0 in the region. We're 0-0 in the region. Whoever wins this thing tonight will go one step closer to reaching their goals.
Coach Coleman, much the same for your squad, same conversations?
Much the same. Season starts now. These are the ones that matter. These are the ones that matter. And both of us are playing tough non-region games. So, it's not like we're not going to be ready for this game. So, not just the good competition we played, but this was the one that really matters.
Well, talk about this. Since you mentioned scheduling, Coach Coleman, I'll start with you. We're kind of getting to scheduling season too. That's coming up soon. We got our classifications coming up. Got to figure out who we can play. TSSAA is going to tell you when the region games are. Yeah. What's your process right now? Is it something you're worrying about now, or are you thinking about it a little bit? Or?
Well, we're 1-3, so I'm getting a lot of phone calls. No, but yeah, you tentatively get some stuff, gentleman's agreement, but sometimes that don't go anywhere either. But, I think we figure out, we know which weeks we're going to be region as according to last year, because we've heard they're not going to change much stuff. So, you tentatively, we have some written down, but a lot of phone calls. Fielded a lot of phone calls.
And Coach Finch, for you, and I know you guys, we were all on a message together, got to figure out when we're off for fall break, because that matters. You want to try to get that figured out if you can. Right. So you're in that same part of your scheduling as well.
And one of the things that makes it a little bit harder now is we don't know if we're going to have 3 home region games or 2 home region games. So that adds a layer of kind of headache to this, and that you've got to try to find 3 guys willing to come to your place, or you got to understand you got to go on the road those extra times, and that can make it a little tougher because you just won't know until they release that schedule.
You can have some teams, but the home and away really matters.
Absolutely.
I've thought, and maybe you guys have done this at some level, I've thought especially for us, not to put us on the total pinnacle here, but people generally don't want to play us. They don't. I'm just wondering if we get to a point in time, kind of like you see in college football, there's like a payday. Hey, if you'll come here, we'll give you X amount. I feel like that may be coming.
Well, it may be happening already.
We everybody kind of talks about we played BA, and they're like, why did we start playing BA? Because I needed a 5th home game in 2023, and they were willing to come to us. So why do we have to travel to Henry County every year? They're willing to play us. So, we'll write the check for the buses, and we go to Henry County every year. It's just, that's kind of a good thing about Williamson County. I guess there's a lot of respect for the kind of programs that we have.
Yeah, and you get to, I mean, I choose a head coach and a program just as much as I do a team, if that makes sense. I mean, you don't want to play a guy that, that the team is not going to be disciplined or the team is going to get you in trouble, different things like that, if that makes sense.
No, it does.
But yeah, so choosing scrimmages, choosing games goes along with a lot with the program you're playing, in my opinion.
That's funny you say that. Coach Rathbone was in here a couple weeks ago, said the same thing. Yeah. When you play a guy, you know that if they're better than you or you're better than them, you're going to handle it right, not try to run it up, get people hurt, some of those kind of things. So it definitely is important. Let's talk a little game history. Brentwood leads the overall series 5-2. You're 1-1 in playoff games. Coach Coleman's been around for all those games. Coach as head coach, Coach Finch, 3-2 in that series. Now, I thought it was interesting looking back that every time you've played, even though you haven't always been in the same classification, in those 7 matchups, you have, sort of. Mm-hmm. Because in 13-14 was back with the old districts and the Z plan. So I think what happened then, Brentwood was larger division than Summit, but during the season you still played each other. That was kind of a strange time, Coach Finch.
Yeah, there's a lot of history between the schools. People don't always think. I guess we went for 3 or 4 years. I guess maybe 4 years where we didn't really play each other. They were 5, and we got bumped back up to 6. Yes. But there's a lot of history there, and it's a Williamson County game. So you take the history and you add the playoff matchups that we've had. I guess we've played each other 5 times in the last.
Yes, you're right.
I mean,
we
played multiple times in the playoffs.
Right?
5 in the last 3.
That's right.
So, but that's what's fun. We're familiar with them. They're familiar with us, and there's a lot on the line. So,
and Coach Coleman, you were talking, especially early on with that Z plan. As young as the school was, that was a rough time.
We were a young school, and we were playing then. We were 5A. We were a small 5A. Just starting to be a program, and we had to go play Ravenwood, Brentwood, and all the. Whew, man, it was tough. I told a story. We had a freshman lined up. At that time, that freshman ended up being pretty good. It was Ty Carter. He was a freshman lined up against Van Jefferson, and Van Jefferson was a D1 athlete. So it was fun, to say the least.
Back up Ty and hope they don't throw it.
Amen. That's what it was. Keep it in front of you.
Hey, something I've not just looking at scores, but thinking about these past 5 especially. To me, these have been line of scrimmage games.
Oh, yeah.
Been physical contests.
Absolutely. I guess it was 20. We only scored 20 and 22. I think it was a low-scoring game the first round, or not the first round, but the first time we played. So, and that's what we tell the kids. Like, historically, Summit's got a certain level of grit about them, a certain level of determination, and they're going to make you earn stuff. One of the things that makes it a fun game.
Yeah. Even when we were really, really good, I think in 2020 or 2021, we only scored like 2 touchdowns, maybe 3, because it's the type of defense that Brentwood plays every year. It's gritty and hard to get big plays on, and it's just tough.
Let's talk about your game so far this year. We'll start with Coach Coleman. Last week, tough outing against Blackman, but if you look at it now, obviously with your team, let's just call it what it is. You've had some tough injuries. I mean,
We've had a few. You
really have, and it seems like there's always a team in football, especially, that for whatever reason, the injury bug kind of hits them. Nobody's going to feel sorry for you. Nobody's going to do this. But let's face it, it is a definite factor right now.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, one side, but let me just go the positive side. We've got the young guys getting a lot of experience. So that's a good thing. But not starting the same 5 offensive linemen yet this year is it's pretty tough. We've got one kid, Ian McCarthy, great young man, senior offensive lineman. He's played center, guard, and tackle. So just by necessity. And he can play them all well. So, I mean, we're putting it on film for colleges, so that's, positive. But also, we got young kids. We had to move a young man, Luke Meyer. He was a running back, about 3rd string running back. We moved him to guard. It's just we're just doing what we can. But the kids are, they're fighting their tail off. They're working every week. We're not going to try to feel sorry for ourselves.
Well, and you take a look and take some positives. And I know it still counts, but take out that second quarter. Think about how your defense played last week. Yeah. They did a good job against a good Blackman team.
Defense did good. They've done well the last 2 weeks. Green Hill, 6-0 going in the 4th quarter. And then last week, they had a scoop and score and a fumble, and you just kind of snowballed from there. And when you're a younger team, you're fragile. And no matter what we say as a coach, you're just fragile, and they start ducking their heads. They just got to understand that bad things may happen and play the next play.
Coach, let's talk about your matchup with Henry County. You come out on top 7-6. You're probably off the Henry County Christmas list because I texted you after the game and noticed that in the last 4 years, you've won all 4. Great games every time. In fact, the biggest margin, I think, was 7 points.
Yep.
You've won by a total of 13 points in those 4 matchups.
Yeah, well, obviously that's one of the things we like about playing Henry County is that they're going to be coached up really well. Coach Counts does such a good job with them. It's kind of our last non-region before we get into the region. You want to test yourself a little bit. And I'll be honest, Friday night, you've got, first of all, tip your hat to their defense. They did a really good job, had a really good game plan. But we also got into the red zone multiple times, and we had penalties that backed us up, and we were kind of on the cusp of what do we do? Do we try to swing at a long one, or do we punt it? Or a lot of third and longs down there, and unfortunately, that's been kind of a recurring theme for us. Same thing, kind of against Brentwood Academy, not finishing in the red zone. But it was, our defense had to hold up through that whole game against a really strong running football team. We had to find a way to move the ball against a really good defensive team. So at the end of the day, that's why we play those guys. We felt like we're a better team coming out of it. We just know we've got some stuff we need to clean up.
Well, and when you're talking about, you both have talked about quality opponents playing tough teams, but add to it, playing at Henry, you got to travel all that distance.
Henry County is always a joy.
Yeah. That's got to be great prep, though.
Oh, I think so. And we talk about, number one, it can be a hostile environment at Henry County.
Lots of extra kind of noise.
Yeah, lots of noise going on.
Especially when you're trying to warm up at halftime. There's grown men at the goalpost yelling at your kids. Yeah.
So it can be a hostile environment. But the other good thing about it, and we tell the kids that, like, if you're going to make a playoff run, you're going to have to get on a bus and travel a long distance and play somebody pretty good. So let's go ahead and do that during the regular season and see how we handle it. And it's just a fun place to play, though. As maybe not right in the heart of it or heat of it.
Good experience for
It's a
kids.
good experience, yeah.
Hey, let's talk about your region, Brentwood, Franklin, Independence, Ravenwood, Summit, Overton. Coach Coleman, let's start with you. Obviously, you need time to heal. Hopefully, as the season progresses, you get some guys back. If you look at your schedule, you've got 2 region games in the last 3 weeks of the season that could mean a whole lot. Is that part of your discussion with your team? Hey, let's hang in there. Even at the very end, we're going to have a shot.
Yeah, it's mostly week by week right now. We're just trying to take care of this game. But you're right. I mean, grand scheme of things, let's try to get some people back. It might not happen. I don't know that it's going to happen. But if nothing else, the guys that are in there are getting better every week because they get more time practicing.
Well, and you take a look at your team last year. You get in the playoffs, you take care of business, you're playing a couple weeks of the playoffs, which, again, play the schedule you play the league you play in, just get in.
Get in, I think, yeah, you're right. Get in is the biggest thing right now, especially for our program right now. Just the rash of injuries, just let's get in, and then we'll see what happens. May get some people back, upset somebody first round if you're a lower seed, but let's get in.
Coach Finch, let's talk about your team. You're coming in at 3-1. You've been tested. Your schedule's been tough. We talked about, number one, you guys are willing to schedule people, and that's really all you guys that coach football, but you probably didn't have a choice either. Yeah. But you're tested going into region play.
Yeah, and I think, if you look, and obviously we feel like we got lucky in that we caught Blackman week 1. We think they've gotten, better as the year went on. BA is going to test you. We played really well against Hendersonville, but they're a 3-1 football team right now, and then Henry County. So you hope those games prepare you for your region games. And very similar to what Brian said, we're going to have to take it one game at a time. Don't look ahead. If you want to win a region championship, you got to win those region games. You want to get in the playoffs, you got to win the region games, and that's just where we are right now. We're still a little untested. We're not quite as old and as experienced as we were last year. So we talk to the kids a lot. Like, we walk a pretty fine line on Friday nights. We can't have mistakes. We got to have great weeks of practice if we're going to sit there and do those, attain those goals we want to attain. And this Friday night is going to be a big, first step there.
Coach Finch, talk about this. We'll start with your offense. You lost a ton of people in general. Mm-hmm. You had a huge senior class, one of the biggest I can remember seeing. Yeah. You do have some guys back. You got Merrill back. You got Nelson back. But let's face it, you had to kind of figure out, what are we doing at quarterback? Yeah. You had to figure that thing out.
So, obviously we're playing 2 right now. We're, pleased with the way both those kids are handling it. They have both done enough. We feel like they deserve to play. They're really similar. There's a little bit of different styles, but I think they both do a lot of the same things well. We kind of, keep thinking that, well, maybe we'll settle on a starter, but right now they're making it hard for us to decide, who needs to be the starter, who needs to get the most reps. Fortunately for them, they have Gavin Nelson in the backfield. That's a pretty good safety net. We always tell them, hey, if we don't feel good about the RPOs, let's hand it to Gavin. That's a really good ball player. And they've got a Clayton Merrill out there at receiver that if you can get it kind of close to him, he'll usually catch it and make something happen. And then we've tried to figure out the pieces everywhere else out there. We're starting, we start a freshman wide receiver this year, which we don't do very often. We're starting another sophomore wide receiver. We started a sophomore offensive lineman. We were starting another sophomore receiver, but we've had to move him to defense. He just plays occasionally over there on offense for us now. We ain't got it figured out either. We're still trying to figure it out and just kind of get better week by week.
Talk about that 2 quarterback system. I think it's always interesting, and it's usually people that don't know as much about it as you guys know. Oh, you got to have one quarterback. You got to have.
Yeah.
Is that? I think it depends on the situation, doesn't it? I think about Tebow when he played for Florida. It was Chris Leak and Tim Tebow. That worked out great for them.
The coaching saying is if you've got 2 quarterbacks, you've got no quarterbacks. But I don't think that's the case. I think we're making 2 work right now. I think Will Hester's finding a way to make 2 quarterbacks work for him right now.
Unfortunately.
And. That's just it's kind of a unique situation, but it's your job as a coach when you're handed unique situations. How do you handle it? How do you manage it? And we hope we're handling it and managing it the right way. Kids are competing, battling, and it's been positive thus far.
Coach Coleman, let's talk about your team. I know at Media Day, one of the things you were excited about, you're talking about you brought a new offensive coordinator. You're going to hand that over. You got an experienced quarterback, and then you have some injuries. So tell me how that's all kind of played out for your squad.
Yeah, well, it all starts with the offensive line, and we were thin going in, and that's kind of where we've been hit the most right now. So just trying to figure things out. It's what they're good at. Mason McElhaney's doing a great job at quarterback. Great leader, great leadership, all the things. Luke Oliver's doing a great job at receiver, just going to get 50-50 balls and things like that. So we just got to keep grinding. I mean, that's where we're at right now as an offense, is just keep grinding.
Let's talk about your teams defensively. Coach Finch, we'll start with you. I went back and looked. Gave up 6 points last week. We talked about total of 50 for the year. That's kind of been the strength of your squad so far.
Absolutely. And what's really impressive about that is really just one full-time defensive starter back, Mason Ball at corner. But what we are blessed to have is William Stockhoff at inside linebacker, who played a lot of snaps. Mason Ray at outside linebacker played a lot of snaps. Shepard Smith played a lot of snaps. But we've also had some really nice surprises. Coleman Childs started at inside linebacker this last week, and he was a kid, didn't even play freshman football, came out as a sophomore and has made himself a valuable member. We had a kid that moved here from Florida named Ryan Akins, and we played him on the defensive line, big strong kid, and knowing that you will get a lot of run from Henry County, he stepped up and did a great job. Really, really pleased with that whole group. I've always said I think our defensive staff's as good as there is out there right now. They always get those guys ready to play.
Coach Coleman, let's talk about your squad on defense. The last 2 weeks especially, you talked about your defense playing well. And with the injuries you have on offense, a little bit harder to score, you're really having to hang your hat maybe on that defensive side of the ball.
We have, and we're not helping them out any, but they've done a great job of keeping us in games. I mean, a lot of the scores may be skewed because of special teams or an offensive error, like a scooper score or an interception return for a touchdown, or even just turn the ball over and putting them in bad position. But Coach Toad does a great job with our defense. They're doing good. Mekhi Bell is doing a really good job at D-line. As long as we can just keep those guys healthy and just have them keep us in games.
And Bell, that's a young man that's really improved.
He has. His hands, his quickness has gotten a whole lot better. He's 6'6", 230, so everybody, is high on him, just sheer size. So we got to get him on the offensive side of the ball a little bit more. So Coach Taylor is not liking to hear that. But he's quite a blocker, quite a tight end, quite a pass catcher. So you'll probably see him, no surprise, you'll probably see him a little bit more on offense.
Sure.
Well, and you talked about that. He definitely passes the look test. He's gotten better. And because of that, he's getting some looks.
He's getting some looks. Yeah, he just picked up an offer from ETSU this past week. So it's fun. Good time for him. He deserves it. He's working his tail off in the summer. So, now he's got to keep them grades up.
Well, and that's
Public service announcement. Keep your grades up, boys.
Well, that's one of those things, too, as a coach. I know that's exciting, is you see a guy that maybe didn't get that kind of attention as a younger guy, but then you see him blossom. It's got to be exciting as a coach.
They'll find you. I mean, they're going to find you. These kids shuffle from school to school thinking these colleges aren't going to find you. They'll go to another school just because get more of this, more of that. These colleges are going to find you. It don't matter where you're at.
No doubt about it. Hey, let's talk about special teams. Obviously, you talk about in WCS, it's been a strength for us. Coach Finch, when you talk about Brentwood, I think you really talk about that.
Yeah.
So talk about your special teams play so far.
So pleased with it. Probably the biggest thing that we had to kind of figure out this year was Luke Armstead left. He'd been a 2-year punter for us and did a great job. And of course, Isaac Hayes left as well as a kickoff guy and field goal kicker. But Keenan Fisher has stepped up and done a really good job for us thus far. So really pleased with him. Also lost Tyson Moody. He's long snapping up at Austin P now. Liam Englehart has stepped in there. We're a little fortunate in that because we play, offense or defense, we 2-platoon it. We can get some better athletes, we think, on the field, a little fresher, we think that helps us. Clayton Merrill continues to do a great job in the kickoff return game and the punt return game. Hendersonville housed one on us, and then they kicked off, and Clayton repaid the favor immediately. So having those guys that can step up and fill those roles from us on the special team side has been huge.
And in these region games, Coach Coleman, especially as the games get tighter, possessions get a little less.
And that's the
big
turning. If you're bad on special teams, it's going to show. Yeah, defense playing their butts off, offense playing their butts off, and give up a kickoff return or give up a bad field position. So it's very important. We've got to find Merrill and kick it as far away from his as we possibly can.
Well, and talk about this, because you say you're leaning on your defense. So, offense gets you a first down or two. You punt the ball, you got to make sure it's not a big return. You want to flip the field on them.
100%. You are correct. Yep. See, look at you learning football.
Listen, I had to look that up. Takes enough flip.
1, 2, 2, 2, 3.
Hey, let's talk tonight's game a little bit. Coach Finch, keys for your team tonight offensively to continue to show improvement?
Stay out of third and long situations. We're a big team right now. We need to stay on schedule, right? It's a lot easier on 2nd and 5 than 2nd and 10. It's a lot easier on 3rd and short and 3rd and long. Obviously, coming off last week, minimize those penalties. That we cannot keep doing that. We've got to find a way to minimize penalties and we got to be better in the red zone. Like when we get in the red zone, we've got to walk away with points. That's the only way you're going to win a game against a Summit or any of our WCS opponents is find ways to get the ball in the end zone or through the upright in the red zone.
Coach Coleman, your team last week, now the weather had something to do with it. You fumble it 4 times. I think they get 2 of them. Can't have that tonight. Got to control the ball.
Protect the football. You got to protect the football and don't give up big plays. That's our 2 big keys this week. No big plays and protect the football. It's as simple as that. It's a simple game, you would think.
Talk about time of possession too, Coach Coleman. Is that something you're looking at too? We got to make sure we're on the right end of that, or is that maybe not something that you?
We're just trying to score right now. Quite honestly, I'll take a 10-second score. I don't care. But yes, grand scheme of things, yes, you would like to run the football, get the football down the field, and eat up the clock, keep their offense off the field. Yeah, that's all the coach talk stuff. But right now, we're just trying to put it in the end zone.
Yeah.
Coach Finch, again, we talked about your defense playing great, but as a coach, you're always looking to be a little bit better. Talk about the improvements you're looking to make going into these region games.
So, get off the field on 3rd down. Sometimes we struggle at that. Probably start fast. We do, I think if you look, we sometimes struggle our first series out, but that's kind of high school football. They're pretty multiple. A lot of people are multiple. You got to sort some stuff out that first drive. And then, when they get the ball in the athlete's hands, we've got to get them on the ground. We can't sit there and bounce off the first hit, let them get 4 or 5 more. They've got the ability to drive the ball and keep the ball out of our offensive hands. So when we get a chance to get them down, get them off the field, we've got to take advantage of that.
Talk about Coach Coleman challenges. You talked about Merrill. You're going to punt away from him, kick away from him.
Kick as far away as we can.
Talk about challenges of Nelson and Merrill for your defense tonight.
Yeah, you're going to identify them for sure. Just can't get beat deep. Safeties have to be, can't bite on underneath stuff or anything like that. Just can't give up big plays. We just definitely can't give up big plays.
Gentlemen, I appreciate you being here. This has been great.
Always glad to be here.
Thanks, Coach.
Fun times.
Thank you for joining us for the Coaches Show. We'll see you next time.